I want to welcome Scott to our stage, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We met Scott about 18 months ago at another conference talking about workforce development and some of the programs that we were doing, and Scott has something unique that he wants to share with you, so I will let him go ahead and get started.
Well, thank you, Grace. So I guess and I hate this word when they use this in conferences, but I have not heard this one time this week. So I'm going to level set.
You do that.
Thanks. So I came from the world of entertainment. I came out of college. I was a theater kid. I've been in this choir before, I'm sure. And left college with a theater degree and essentially jumped right into HBO, ironically enough. And I thought, oh, I'm going to make this jump with a business idea into HBO, and then eventually I'll switch over to the creative side. And I was in that industry for 20 years and never got to jump over the chasm between business and the fun creative stuff. So I just say that because that's my background. I spent a lot of time launching networks, helping to launch programming and storytelling, creating brands around storytelling. So at some point, my family, we decided to leave LA and chose a town called Flagstaff, Arizona, which is at 7,000 feet in the mountains of Arizona. They have mountains with snow. And I had to reinvent myself. And I've done that a couple of times in my career, but this time, this one opportunity came up where they had an opening for an incubator for a CEO, executive director. And the incubator was called NACET, N-A-C-E-T.
NACET.
Yeah.
Just imagine just saying that over and over again. NACET.
It sounds nasal. It sounds like nascent, which is okay. But Northern Arizona Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. This opportunity came up, and I said to the board that were trying to interview me or hire me, I said, if I take this job, if I get this job, the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to rebrand it. And I sort of said, I can't do it if I can't rebrand it. And so I jumped into that job 9 years ago. About 9 months into the job, we rebranded, and which is a great story. I don't know if I have time for this quick story, but sure. Part of the problem that Flagstaff had in general with Arizona, not with Arizona, but in general perception, was that everybody was in Phoenix and everybody would look up to Flagstaff and think, you guys are doing innovation up there? You guys are mountain people, you hug trees, you wear Birkenstocks, you climb rocks. And so part of what I wanted to do was change that idea. And so I remember I hired a good buddy of mine. We sat down in the rebranding process. We made 2 columns. And the first column we talked about were the things that Flagstaff, what the lifestyle was. Everybody lived there for the lifestyle. So we had ideas around, 4 seasons of, rock climbing, mountain biking, snow skiing, long distance running, all those fun stuff. Bonfires. And I was like, oh, bonfires, that's a cool idea, cool concept. It's about a single spark being thrown in, and then the community gathers and they add more wood to the fire and the fire gets bigger. Sounds like a cool startup, storyline. And then I let that kind of sit with me. I kind of talked it over with a few community members. And they're like, Scott, Coconino County has more fires. It's not really something we lean into. It's like, okay. So then the next column, we had this idea of space. Lowell Observatory had discovered Pluto. We had the USGS was right behind our campus, and that's where all the astronauts were trained who landed on the moon. We were actually on Gemini Drive, and I was like, duh. But then the thing that really I remembered was the JFK speech that he made to the world when he made the proclamation. He said, we're going to put a man on the moon, we're going to do it, and we're going to return him safely. And at the time when he said that and he made that huge proclamation, we had no clue how we were going to do that. But because he proclaimed it, because he made that a public vision, all of a sudden, smart people from around the world came in and said, I think I can help you solve this problem. I think I can solve this problem. And I was like, yes, that's it. When a person walks into our facility or into our incubator world, if they proclaim that thing, if they say, hey, I think I know how to cure cancer, or I know how to make a better taco, that vision we need to believe in, and we need to surround them with business acumen. So that was the impetus for the name Moonshot. And then 2 years ago, we actually locked in the trademark and everything.
That's great. That's a great story. So I think all of you can sort of relate to maybe having to pivot in your organization. And the parallel that we had going along with what you were talking about was if anybody is from Augusta or remembers way back when, we shared it a little bit yesterday, but we started out as Hack Augusta. And even that acronym was an idea of like harnessing Augusta's creativity and knowledge. Hack, right? Or whatever the word hack was. And that transpired. We went from a for-profit to a nonprofit. Now we're kind of both. We have our institute, and then we have our platform. And the clubhouse is a space. Some of you have been to that space. We're going to talk about it more this afternoon on our tour. And then we have Make Startups, which has become the umbrella organization for the programming and things that we're doing across the country. So I can have a lot of empathy with you about how people don't understand maybe where you are, where you're going, how many emails you've taken, how many domain names you've bought. So tell us more about the journey of what you did as you rediscovered this purpose in this space and what you're able to do for your community.
Yeah, so I had the fortunate, and I'm going to keep it at that, I had the fortunate nature of not knowing anything about what I was getting involved in. I had never run a nonprofit. I hadn't even started a company. Now my wife had, so I'd lived through that. But I didn't know all the acronyms. I didn't know what you guys know that you're teaching me this week. So I kind of went in stupid, but with the vision that we could do something powerful. And so part of the problem that we had in Flagstaff is that they built buildings and had acquired EDA funding to build these buildings. And some of the restrictions that the EDA funding,
Strings attached.
Those still existed, and these rules had been given to us back in 2001. And so part of my frustration in working with the confinement of those EDA rules and with city councils, and I know I have some friends in here on the city council, is that just too many restrictions, and I felt like I couldn't do what I wanted to do. And we were acting like a hub, what Eric talked about. I could only help those who were able to rent in our space, stuff like that. They had to fall into certain sectors. They had to be in the bio space, in the light manufacturing space. So sector focused, limited to people who could rent. And what that meant is they also had to already have all the proper paperwork and documentations and insurance to be able to rent. So we had a couple of those around the state. We were actually incubating incubator programs, and all of them had their own layers and layers of restrictions and hub-like mentality. So the thing that I realized as soon as I could, as those legacy contracts started to expire, I decided, let's leave. Let's leave, because the people that can afford us at the $350 a year kind of annual contract are not really the people that need us. We need to be going out into the rural areas where people love where they live and they want to see better jobs and a higher lifestyle for their neighbors. So we did keep the Flagstaff contract because it's our home base and we have facilities and, like I said, a campus. But the complete reconfiguring of the business model was that we were going to go everywhere. We're going to try to find a way to scale this. I also found, after years of doing business with city contracts, that you almost lose money at a certain point, because you guys call it mission creep, I call it feature creep because of my tech background. We want you open on Sundays, and we want somebody there on this holiday, all that kind of stuff. Well, that costs money. That's people. And so I thought, how can we do the work, mission work? How can we get to the people that need our help and have a good business model? So that was the switch.
So speaking of business model, we paralleled that in the sense that we threw a bunch of programming on a wall and we just kind of figured out what stuck, right? Mm-hmm. And if you follow the money, good or bad, sometimes you're restricted, like you said. And so I wrote down a list of like all the things that we have been in the last 12 years. So we are a co-working space. We were a hacker space. We did hackathons on the weekends and in the evenings. We were a maker space during the maker movement. We went around the state talking about 3D printers and STEM education and kids robotics and all kinds of clubs that had to do with, the next generation of science and technology people. And those were all great things to do, but we could never really hone in, because we started all of this through the lens of entrepreneurship. We started all this like the film this morning, entrepreneurship, creating jobs, keeping things local in your communities. We did 3D printing camps where you literally 3D printed a 3D printer. We had a garden. We had our space as an art gallery. We did coding school. That was probably our first into the workforce development program, which will go along our business model. We did drone camps. We did a lot of things related to youth and STEM education, but we have now since come back into our entrepreneurship journey, and I want you to share with them your next days.
Yeah, well, and we had maker spaces, and I just got rid of all that stuff because they would constantly were broken. They were not really being used correctly. Anyway, so part of reaching out to rural, we decided to start doing a pitch competition tour, but to a high level of entertainment. And I mean, again, I come from a background of showbiz. Let's bring some of that sexiness to these communities that aren't used to this kind of touch and feel and marketing. So we just finished our 6th tour this year, and this year we had 20 tour stops. And essentially what we do is my wife and I, she's my chief marketing officer now, and she was on Shark Tank season 2, so that's kind of cool. So we kind of use that as a tiny bit of a hook. But we go to these small communities. We spend about 9 hours. Applicants come in, and they do 2 rounds of pitch practice where they receive coaching and mentoring. And we let anyone in. You can even have just learned about us the morning of. We'll give you a worksheet. It's a 1-page, both-side worksheet. All you have to do is fill in the blank, stand on the stage, proclaim your idea, and we got you. And what we mean by that now is that if you show up prior to even starting your pitch, I award everybody with a scholarship to be onboarded onto our platform. So the lady who was talking about show up, I am all about showing up. If you first show up and then say it out loud, and you're so much further ahead of everybody else, just those 2 things together. So we award everyone with a scholarship, which means that we onboard them onto our Constellations platform. And this platform, I like to say, is like the Facebook for entrepreneurs. But what it does for the rural communities, it really gives them a sense of community, which they might not have in their 700 population town or whatever. And it also shows them that they're not alone potentially in solving the problems they're trying to solve currently with their company. And there are other people that they can match up with across the state. On top of that platform, we have another section of about 9 courses, digital courses that you can take, self-paced videos. You take a couple of question quizzes, which is mainly about business fundamentals. And then the exciting thing that we have partnered with Make Startups with is the Co-Founder OS platform. So that's the next level engagement. We have branded that Moonshot Academy, but it is Co-Founder OS. And essentially what that platform does, it allows those entrepreneurs who really know what their business is to go in and utilize the platform, receive the AI feedback, receive the in-person or online mentoring, coaching, and align themselves for future funding.
So the thing that I wanted to also make sure that the audience knew was that obviously a lot of us are here today to understand how do you get access to capital to keep your ESO entrepreneurial system going. And what we discovered is, again, we no longer have our mission drift. We are part of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We have different pillars of funding that comes through, and a lot of you also have these pillars. So we have the space that you guys have seen. We still do apply for grants and partnerships. Eric has talked a lot about our sponsorships, and we also do these things called fee for services. So the programming that we provide and the partnerships that we have with others are aligned with maybe grants that they have gotten and that we have now become the sub for them. So I think a lot of us have that opportunity to also be able to kind of outsource our thought leadership, and so then you too can go into other communities and kind of share what you did in your community.
Yeah, it's so important.
Do you have any other final thoughts?
I do. Thank you for asking. I had to make some quick notes.
Yeah, please.
So I think that I recognize that we, at the end of the day, we're almost really a marketing company, and so we market an aspirational story for people to get out and talk about these things that they imagine, and then we provide them with the structure to do it. But we're also a marketing company for our sponsors. So when I came on board, maybe our budget was only about 2 or 3% from corporate donors. Now it's 45%. Because what I've done is we've shown corporations like Blue Cross Blue Shield or some of our power companies and utility companies and commercial lenders and commercial real estate people that the people we're working with, it's in their best interest to make sure that these people get the schooling they need, get the coaching and mentoring they need so they can afford the services that they're offering on their end. And so I think there's a great article I would totally recommend. I don't remember if Eric told me about this guy, but Paul O'Brien, he's on LinkedIn. He specifically talks in one of his articles about the fact that founders are broke by design, you know, and so we should stop requiring that they pay all these funds up front, like rent and utilities, and we should figure out a way to have maybe the professional services who benefit from their future companies to work. So anyway, so that's one thing. The other thing is, this kind of goes back to the AI piece, but in the nonprofit world, this is my assessment only, my opinion, is that you can't scale. If you can't scale without, it's so hard to say. If you can't scale without human capital, like if you need human capital in order to scale, most likely you will not last in the nonprofit world because the engines that fund us constantly change. And so if you're not truly embracing AI on some measure to help you with your mission-driven organization, then you need to rethink that. And AI is scary in some worlds, and I think we're going to benefit more than we're going to.
Yes, it's an emerging thing that we are all now participating in.
Yes,
and it'll just become more and more as a tool to help the resources that you're using to help the entrepreneurs.
Yes, exactly. But I'm happy to, we have a model that's scalable. We have a model that can go worldwide. We have a model that can go across the state lines. So yeah, call us.
Call Scott. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace.